This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 1357, Why We're Taking on Debt to Move from Good to Great, Part 1, by Fritz Gilbert of the retirementmanifesto.com. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. This is the show where I read to you from some of the best blogs on personal finance, sometimes a little too enthusiastically. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Good thing I recorded this in advance, as depending on what time you're listening to this, I'm either stuffing my face with stuffing, debating on whether I should have more pie, or regretting how much I ate, or maybe all three at once. So let's get right to today's post so you can get right back to basting your turkey as we continue optimizing your life. Why We're Taking on Debt to Move from Good to Great, Part 1, by Fritz Gilbert of the retirementmanifesto.com. 555 days ago, we sold our big house in the city and moved to our retirement cabin in the mountains. As soon as the proceeds from the sale of the city house landed in our bank account, we wrote the biggest check of our lives, paid off the cabin mortgage, and became officially 100% debt-free. How then are we now $171,000 in debt? What went wrong, you ask? It's all part of the plan. It wasn't part of our original plan, but our plan was wrong. We planned anyway. One of the things we learned during our final approach into retirement is that you have to remain flexible. Plans change, and that's okay. As long as you're making improvements from good to great, it's fine to change the plan as the situation changes. It's part of life, and it's easier to swim with the current. Just make sure you're steering the boat. Why we're taking on debt to move from good to great. Is all debt bad? Not in my mind, and not in the view of Investopedia. It's important to know the difference between good versus bad debt and think through the implications before you intentionally incur any debt. Once you understand the power that good debt can provide and the costs required to obtain that power, it's worthwhile to look at debt a bit more strategically. When does it make sense to intentionally take on debt? In our case, it made sense as part of our move from good to great. Today, I'll tell you why. Reason number 1, low-cost debt. When we thought about moving from the good to the great cabin, we had a variety of decisions to make. Number 1, is the good cabin good enough, or do we want to make a move for great? Number 2, if we move for great, do we buy the great cabin before or after we sell the good cabin? Number 3, if we buy before we sell, do we have the liquidity to pay cash? And number 4, what's our best option to finance this move to great? The answer to the first two questions was a resounding yes. We paused on the third question regarding liquidity and gave it deeper thought. While it was possible for us to liquidate some investments to pay cash for the new great cabin, was it necessarily the best course of action for us? That question led naturally into question number 4. What's our best option to finance all of this? The primary driver behind the decision to take on the mortgage was today's historically low interest rates. As you'll see shortly, there are additional reasons why we chose to take on the debt, less than a year from our planned retirement. Those factors, however, would have been outweighed by a more historical, that is higher, interest rate. We looked at it as a pure cost-benefit calculation, and I'll be the first to admit that cheap money drove our final decision. I'm not alone, as some CFPs are now recommending folks shouldn't pay off their mortgages due to current interest rates. We've thought it through and we're comfortable with our decision. Had it not been for the historically low interest rate we were able to secure, the decision would have likely been different. I continue to ponder on it and may change my mind again in the future. The plans always change. Plan anyway. Reason number 2. Build low-cost options. In my day job as a commodity trader, I'm always looking for low-cost options for the benefit of my employer. In my view, it's the primary value I bring for the salary I'm paid. I create value for the company for a cost lower than the value of the option. Easy, right? Free options are even better than low-cost options, but most counterparties in my trade are onto that game and realize the value of the offerings they provide. If you want optionality, you typically have to pay for it. But if you know where to look, you can sometimes find it for a price that makes sense. Options have value in business and in life. In our personal case, we were looking for flexibility and wanted to build some low-cost options to provide the maximum flexibility at the lowest cost. Having choices provides value. The trick is to find options which cost less than the value they provide. As we approach our final transition into retirement, the option of flexibility has value, and today's low-interest environment provides that value at very low cost. In our situation, the cost was less than the benefit that the flexibility provides. For us, it made sense to exercise our option. We took on the debt. Reason number 3, the easy button to freedom. While it was technically possible to liquidate enough of our investments to pay cash for our great cabin before the sale of our good cabin, it wouldn't necessarily have been easy. There would have been tax consequences of selling some winners, and we would have had to reinvest the money after we completed the sale of the good cabin. Risks of price movements during the gap were real, and our asset allocation would have been off kilter for a period of time required to sell the good cabin. It was possible, but it wasn't easy. Another factor in our thinking was that we wanted the freedom to move at our own pace. We had decided to take our time and move everything ourselves from the good to great cabin, and knew it would take some time with our little utility trailer. It was a crazy 7-day move, and we learned a lot about moving from good to great. Knowing that we had the luxury of time to complete the relocation was worth a lot to us. We've moved 9 times in our lives, and every single move had been done under the rush of a home sale prior to a home purchase. It's stressful and we don't like it. We wanted to do it differently this time, and having a mortgage made it easier for us to be more relaxed in our timeline. We built great memories as we worked for several months on getting ourselves relocated to great, and we had a lot of fun. We wanted to do it this way, and we enjoyed it. The mortgage made it less stressful. The peace of mind was worth the interest expense. Reason 4. Hear that in tomorrow's episode. You just listened to part 1 of the post titled Why We're Taking on Debt to Move from Good to Great by Fritz Gilbert of theretirementmanifesto.com. If you're a startup owner, this is for you. Running a business is just plain hard. Endless to-do lists, employees to take care of, and your ever-present bottom line. So first of all, kudos to you for staying on top of it. But I want to tell you about Gusto. Gusto built an easier and more affordable way to manage payroll, benefits, and more. They help over 100,000 businesses with tasks like automated payroll tax filing, simple direct deposits, free health insurance administration, 401ks, onboarding tools, you name it, Gusto made it easy. 94% of customers say Gusto streamlines payroll and benefits, and we agree here on the Optimal Living Daily team. We use Gusto for our payroll. Plus, they really care about the small business owners they work with. Their support team is attentive and helpful. Since money can be tight right now, you'll get 3 months free once you run your first payroll. Just go to gusto.com/OFD and start setting up your business today. You'll see what I mean when I say easy. Again, that's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/OFD. gusto.com/OFD. I love the focus here on remaining flexible with your financial plans, because the reality is that the only guarantee in life is that everything always changes. Earlier this month, I hosted a webinar on a concept I'm calling flexibility. I simply can't help myself when it comes to making up and misspelling words, so please forgive me. In short, flexibility is about gracefully navigating the unknowns and, maybe more importantly, seizing the opportunities that present themselves on the path to financial independence. I often remind myself when I'm dreaming up a goal or developing a plan to reach that goal, financial or otherwise, that I can't possibly anticipate today the opportunities that present themselves tomorrow. Goals are great. They help us chart our path, but if we're so rigidly focused on them, we might miss out on some amazing opportunities along the way. Fritz's example of financing a home close to retirement reminds me of some decisions I made when I bought my house a couple years ago. While I was casually looking with no real intention to buy a house, I found something that I just couldn't pass up. I wanted to put 20% down on this $150,000 house to avoid the PMI insurance. And I had the cash, but it was literally all of the cash I had on hand, so I was uncomfortable putting it all towards my down payment. For ultimate flexibility, I put down $15,000 in cash, and I took out a home equity loan for the other $15,000. I paid that home equity loan off aggressively in 6 months, which resulted in me paying only $200 in interest on that loan. I was essentially paying $200 for peace of mind and flexibility, and I found it to be absolutely worth the cost. Well, that should do it for today. Have a great Thanksgiving and holiday weekend. I'm going to do some digesting myself and be back here tomorrow where we'll finish up this post and where your optimal life awaits.